Hey friends, Rob Phoenix here, the Powwow guy with Jason David, the Powwow doctor from Connecticut. It's been a while since I made a video, but Christmas, St. Nicholas and December and such. And plus we're getting ready for the course, that Powwow Essentials course. It begins this coming Monday. So if you haven't signed up and you're still interested in signing up for this 6-week course that we're doing, now is the time, because the cutoff is tomorrow night. New Year's Eve, I'm cutting it off, no more. So you can go to the website, pagermanpowwow.com, click on the Powwow Essentials course and sign up, and you'll be learning from the best. Well, you'll be learning from us. I think we're the best, but I'm humble like that. So anyway, one of the things, Jason and I have been talking lately. Hi, Jason, by the way. Hi.
Hey.
We've been talking a lot lately about, I don't know how to put it. So let's just say, I came across a website the other day, which we've been discussing at length. Now, to be fair, it's an old website. It looks like it was made around 2000, 2001. However, the information that's on the website is still out there and available and still being taught. It's a website filled with misinformation. Okay, misinformation about Powwow. And so I just want to preface this by saying in the 1990s, there was this boom, as most of us remember who were around back in those days. There was this boom of like occult books and Wicca stuff and witchcraft and, New Age. It was this big explosion of everybody and their brother were witches, and there were covens and all these books being written, coven craft and whatever. And a lot of groups formed, like Covenant of the Goddess and such. I don't know them all, but it was a big time in the 90s, very busy. There were festivals every weekend. It was a fun time, but it was a tricky time if you really wanted to learn anything, because back then the people were all trying to kind of outwitch each other. Oh, my grandmother was a witch. Remember that? Everybody's flipping grandmother was a witch. And I'm thinking, I didn't know this, and being gullible, I was gullible at the time. I just thought, wow, my grandparents weren't witches, but that's cool. And, but it was all BS. And so, and then there was all that, I was initiated into a coven that's lasted for thousands of years, back to the ancient Celtic Wiccans, and like, that's not a thing. That's not real, So then we saw in the very late 90s and early 2000s where, when the grandmother was a witch thing didn't pan out, we saw a lot of the Neopagans latching on to established American folk traditions. Traditions that have actual history, and I believe this was an effort to lend some credibility to what they were doing, also make it seem like they were doing something that had ancient roots. But I would also add that I think they were doing it to find something actually valid to practice, because without that, they didn't have much to stand on, because their history had been disputed. So they didn't have that to stand on anymore. The whole grandmother was a witch thing, they didn't have that anymore to stand on. So they start latching on to like hoodoo and some with powwow, but especially everybody was doing conjure. That's like the generic magical word now. And, and people were like, well, I'm a Wiccan, high priestess, conjure, powwow, granny witch, Appalachian, voodoo. Are you? Are you though? So anyway, that's what we're going to kind of talk about, especially, but in regards to, in the context of powwow. Now, we all know that a problematic book was written in the 1990s called Hexcraft, renamed American Folk Magic. And at the time, even back then, I thought this must be the truth about powwow, because I desperately wanted to learn it. Nobody was out there teaching it. This was all that I had at the time, I had access to. There was no internet then. And so even I kind of believed that at first, but it didn't seem true to me, knowing what I knew of Pennsylvania German culture. And so I started reaching out and finding out, oh, it's definitely not true. It's really wrong. And I would dare, go so far as to say most of it's blatant lies. And I let that go years ago. Unfortunately, that kind of stuff has been so influential. And I'm monopolizing the conversation. I don't mean to. I just have so much to say about this.
No, it's okay. It's healthy. So
yeah, well, it's been so influential because people trust these authors. They've read all their books over the years, so they trust that the information they're sharing is genuine. And then where that's problematic is when, well, you and I have both experienced this. We're putting proper information out there, and then we're getting veiled threats from people who still believe and adhere to those false beliefs.
Yeah.
That's a problem. So anyway, I thought we would talk about that. We found this, came across this website the other day, and it really just brought that back, brought that back and brought all those old feelings back. And so I thought this would be a great time. Well, Jason and I both thought this, that we should have a conversation about it. For anybody who's interested in powwow and maybe under the false impression that powwow is something other than what it is, this is the video for you. So here we are. Okay, now it's your turn. I'm so sorry.
No, it's
Need some
okay.
water after that.
Yeah, no, I think ultimately, as we've seen, especially with, like you had mentioned, conjure, hoodoo, root work, you have this entire system that is extremely legit and well established, and it has just been picked apart and turned into things that it isn't, and it doesn't do the culture any justice. It doesn't do the system any justice. And with powwow actually gaining some popularity.
Apologies.
See, your dog agrees.
She does. She's very passionate about this subject.
So, but I think with the popularity of powwow, with the people being exposed, especially the Neopagan community being exposed to the words Braucherei or powwow through that particular book, is just really starting to get picked apart immensely. And one of the things that really gets under my skin is when the information that is genuine is just like inserted your own words and then made this as if it's your own, this fresh revelation, or or to make it appear even more so that powwow or Braucherei is actually the ones that have actually changed everything from this Wiccan context to this Christian context, when that is just blatantly false actuality. In actuality, as you have mentioned many times, and you have some great information on your page relating to this, the powwow and Braucherei itself does not exist outside of Christian context. It's just not there. It's not a reworked pagan system. So there's an issue with that when people present it that way. So even myself, I began to speak out a little bit more publicly regarding these things because it's getting out of hand. I received 2 messages today, actually, that pertain to this very topic. One was in regards to powwow being involved with Native American shamanism, and another one just happened to be with hexcraft. So those were addressed, and they were very fruitful conversations, actually. So it was good. So I think this video is a long time coming and extremely important at this day and time.
Yeah, I agree. And for us to sort of be devil's advocate a little bit, what if we say, well, they're trying to create a spirituality out of something that's pre-existing. So they're changing it in their own ways to fit their own belief system and stuff. Where's the harm?
I'm going to say there's multiple fronts that we can address with that. One is essentially they are contributing to the destruction and the dwindling of an entire system that is very culturally related, and in large part is an important aspect of many people's family history. These things are just being absorbed and destroyed. I think that's one. I think the second thing for me would be that once you begin to take it, you explained this analogy actually, and I love this, and you might even be able to say it better than I can. The pie making situation. If you had your grandmother's apple pie, and she gives you all the ingredients, and you have them written, that she's written them down, and we could follow that to the letter, and it could come out and smell and taste exactly like grandma's apple pie, because it is. We followed those instructions, and we could pass that down through our family. And somewhere along the line, one of the individuals comes out and they decide, I'm not a big fan of apples. I think I'm gonna use blueberries, and I'm not gonna add this ingredient. And they begin, I'm gonna cook it a little bit longer, and I'm gonna, you know, add whatever else to it. The finished product is no longer apple pie. It's blueberries and who knows what else. It doesn't smell the same. It doesn't look the same. And we can't then call it apple pie by default. And I think that's exactly what these individuals are doing. I absolutely loved that explanation by you, because it's genius, and I think it's just perfect and easy to understand.
I agree. Well, I'm glad that made sense to you, because when I wrote it, I was like furiously typing, and I thought, well, how can I make this sound nice? And I thought, what a great analogy. But another thing that I have found to be true is that, no, I think Silver's a great writer. She did a great job with her group. People love being a part of her group. I trained under her for a long time. But it just, the foundation of her teaching, what she claims her people are when you get to that third degree level is a powwow, a browker. And that's just not true. Actually, I would even go so far as to wager that, or not to wager, to say that one thing they are, and I know this to be true, is hexerai, hexen. There's that element to them. More hexen than powwow, that's for sure. There's her version of powwow, which certainly has no historical basis, no cultural foundation or whatever. And it surprises me too, because there was a claim by her to have been taught by Preston Zerby.
Yeah.
And the reason I question the truth of that is just because of some of the wording and things that, it seems that he stated about positive divinity. As long as you believe in positive divinity, that's such an alien concept to Pennsylvania Dutch culture. That's just such an alien concept to powwow in general, but also, Pennsylvania German culture. There was, those words, it just, as long as you call on positive divinity and the white light of the all and the love of the universe and all, I don't think so. I don't really. So I think it's really important for the preservation of culture, like you said, to stick to the truth. Otherwise, you're rewriting history and you're implanting things in history where they never were. And you're undoing you're disrespecting the struggles of the people who live those.
For sure. Absolutely.
Especially their religious persecution. Pennsylvania became a haven for religious freedom, but it wasn't covens of witches coming over here. All right. It was the Protestants, and like the Mennonites and the Amish, the Anabaptists, they were all coming here. The Christian mystics were coming here. They had a place to go to escape Catholic persecution, basically. Well, the persecution's by the Catholics and whatever else. But so you can't deny those people's struggles. You can't deny what powwow was born out of. Certainly, if you want to do something inspired by powwow, then say that.
Right.
Say, you know what?
Agreed.
I like this. Let's make it pagan. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to do a pagan version of an existing American Christian tradition, but I have seen us referred to as the Christian version of powwow.
Yes.
And that's where I'm drawing a line, because it's culturally false. It's a historical lie. And that's where I draw the line.
That's actually one of the claims or one of the statements that an individual I was having a conversation with online regarding this subject had stated the same thing, that they loved her work, and she's a fantastic writer in the context of the Wiccan tradition and things like that. And I don't know a whole lot about that, so I'm not even going to go one way or the other. But he was stating that he had a real hard time with her calling what she does braucherei, and kind of making this braucherei, this pagan tradition, which existed before what the Pennsylvania Dutch are doing is powwow, which is Braucherei is the same thing. It's the exact same thing. And to claim otherwise is just false information or disinformation, really. So in this individual that comes out of the Wiccan, out of the Wiccan tradition and stuff, and begin to speak a little bit about that. So it was interesting to hear someone in that tradition even speak out regarding that very subject.
Yes, correct. And, you and I have both spoken to people who are either former or current members of her group and who are confused about powwow. They're saying, we just don't get it. We don't know what she's trying to say to us, but it doesn't make sense and it doesn't ring accurately for us. So I find it interesting that they've come to us for, a direction in it. And I'm happy to give it because, it is important. And I think in Silver's defense, she may just not understand it. She sees the world through the lens of a neo-pagan. And so I don't think she really understands what it means to have faith in God and believe in tradition and, truly follow our cultural ancestors' ways. I think for her, it's more like, it's kind of a fantasy almost. It's like, what would I have liked them to have been? You know what I mean? And kind of let's create our own reality and you speak it into existence, whatever. So I don't think she comes at it I don't think she's doing it maliciously, like trying to ruin a
Right.
cultural tradition. I think it's more like she just has this weird, worldview that, allows her to see things as generic that she can just pick and choose and change up and such. And unfortunately, that permeates the quote unquote magical community. So you see a lot of that. You see hoodoo has suffered the ravages of that. Voodoo, I mean, how many years ago were the neo-pagans, they were all like flooding into Haiti to get, and coming back wearing white hats and these colored beads and like, what is going on? What is this craziness? Like, if you want to be Wiccan, that's awesome. But if you don't have anything of your own, then maybe just admit that. If you have to collect all these other traditions in order to call yourself something, that's a problem.
That tends to be a challenge that I often will issue forth with people who will make the claim that Braucherei powwow exists pre-Christian and the Pennsylvania Dutch actually turn this into a Christian tradition. I'll often ask them, show me a reference, historical reference, just relating to powwow specifically, that shows this in a pagan context, like outside where it's just been completely void of any Christian context. It's not there. It isn't there. And if they were to dissect anyone who's like in Silver's work, if she were to really kind of truly dissect that, she would be left with nothing of their own. It's all other cultures. Two things that we're learning, especially with that website, which is extracts from her book, is the majority of that is heavily copied and just words just added miscellaneously to phrases of the Bible, one, and the long lost friend, just copy and pasted with a few different words. So public domain works, absolutely, but it doesn't give anyone the right to really be able to just, I'm going to say, I'm going to make this mean this. It's just not the intention. It actually invalidates, I would say, also the effectiveness of the charms. One of the hard and fast rules in powwow with that are related to the charms is you say these exactly as they are. If you change a word, often it's just not effective. So you're taking charms like from the long lost friend that are very common, and then we insert Mother Maiden Crone, we remove God Christ, and we insert Goddess such and such, whatever. It's completely changed. And so by doing that, the effectiveness of that is diminished at that point. And it can then also no longer be called powwow or Braucherei at the same time. So you're dealing with multiple issues in that.
You're right, absolutely. And also too, in powwow, we understand the charms and the rituals and stuff work because us saying those very specific words is like, it's like a prayer. It's a very
Yes.
specific prayer to God. This is what we need to happen, and God makes it
Absolutely.
happen. But when they're all Wiccanized like this, it's like they're taking God out of the equation, and they're saying these nebulous concepts like in the name of the all, in the name of the love of the universe. Those are meaningless words. So you've now taken the power and you've given it to yourself. And that's ego.
Yes,
That is
which
not
is
God.
a
That is
large
ego.
base for hexerai.
So as you know, as noble as their intentions may be, it does a major disservice. I think we should bring that up on the screen. I'm going to try and click to that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So give me 1 second while I click that, and let's see here.
What's really interesting to me too, which you'll be able to see in this, is taking this very first one that you have on there, the secondary chant. Begin this chant by repeating the client's full name. First and foremost, in powwow, we would use their baptismal name, and that is to demonstrate that this person is a believer in God. Do you believe in God the Father, Son, Holy Spirit? Yes, that's an important aspect of powwow. And so that's kind of been changed. But then you have this interesting statement, which this particular charm actually that she's utilizing, this chant as they call it, is Mark 16, I think 17 and 18. And it's, these signs shall follow those that believe in my name. Well, first and foremost, what name are they speaking of? This is straight from the Bible. So the word in my name, that name is the name of God. So we can discuss that further, but we don't need to really. And they shall cast out demons, they shall speak in new tongues, and if they drink anything deadly, it shall not harm them, and they shall lay hands upon the sick, and they shall recover. That's an important line right there. That is a theological basis for powwow and what we do a lot with our charms and laying our hands on folks and doing some of the gestures that we do. But then this is followed up. Now keep in mind, those that believe in my name, and powwow itself gets its power from God. So in my name, but now this is ended in the name of the maiden mother crone. So this very charm that is supposed to be done, and these things that are be able to be demonstrated through those who believe in the name of God, or in the authority of God, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, is automatically obliterated, rejected, and refused. And then the scriptures are added to at this point in the name of maiden mother crone. It doesn't exist. I ask anyone out there to show me the historical evidence anywhere where the name of the maiden mother crone is invoked through any biblical literature. Show me. I will convert publicly. It's not there.
It's just the arrogance of this charm. Yeah, begin by repeating the client's full name, and these signs shall follow those that believe with my name. First of all, this was Jesus speaking to his disciples.
Yes.
Go forth, and these signs will follow those who believeth in my name will be saved. Those who do not will be cast out. You know what he was giving, the Great Commission. This was his instruction to the people. Such a powerful, powerful thing that lays the foundation for everything we do in powwow and Christian tradition across the board. Rewritten by this one person who has no respect for tradition, history, culture, religion, or the worldview that all that entails, and just writes this to sell a book. It's insulting, it's blasphemous, it's disgusting, it's really, this one kills me.
Yeah, these are the things. Yes, these are the things that get my goat. There's many aspects of this that are just blatantly horrible. Really, theologically, this is just a real hot mess.
Here, this one, let's move on for the sake of time. Let's go to the Ezekiel charm. Now, Ezekiel, let me find it quick. You know that I passed by thee and saw thee and known.
Yeah, it's Ezekiel 16. Yeah, Ezekiel 16:6.
Yeah, so it's been changed up a bit, hasn't it? Aradia walked before the person's name, and she saw the person's name lying in blood and pain. She spoke and said, thou shalt live, thou shalt live, thou shalt live. And it was done in the name of the maiden mother and crone and the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, so mote it be. So who's she talking about there?
This is another butcher of the Trinity, really. So, there are some theological avenues that you can go to that will, we know that, for instance, that God as a whole, the three in one, the Trinity. So, we could say that God itself is not is genderless. So, they may be able to, maybe they're thinking along that line. I don't know. There's also certain titles that relate to God the Father, who's actually, it's an interesting statement, but also shows some genderless notion, like El Shaddai, and we could break that down to the many-breasted one, which just demonstrates he's a nurturer, yada yada. But the addition of this notion of like paralleling Father, Son, and Holy Ghost with maiden mother crone is just far beyond the scope of any sort of historical evidence, once again, or even any sort of solid theological hermeneutic. You're just no way that you can extract that from any of the biblical text.
A walked before, whoever that is.
The Gospel of Aradia, if you're familiar,
the Queen of the Witches.
Yes. So, find that evidence, and you're not going to.
Right.
And once again, we have to go back to saying also, once you change the charms as they have been laid out, you lose the power. So people are relying on, and this is for dire emergencies, by the way. So people are supposed to rely on this, the effectiveness of this. And then you go in your dire emergency and you use this, and because you've changed it, it doesn't work. You could potentially put somebody's life at risk, right?
Yeah, you're right. It does say dire emergencies.
Yeah,
that's serious. That's
absolutely
nothing to fool around with. Well, we could go on and on and on about this, but I think we've done a good job making our point. Let me get out of this screen share, just for time's sake. But we're going to revisit this. We're definitely going to revisit this. There will be a part 2, part 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parts. But we had the course coming up a couple days. But this is really important stuff to discuss. It's really important to question what you are taught. Question who's teaching, the reputation of the person teaching, and where they're coming from. What's their worldview? And really just look at history. I mean, history is your friend. Academia is your friend. And if it seems off, it probably is. So I'm glad I followed my instincts years ago. I'm glad you followed yours, Well, I say that I'm not sure what you, but anyway.
Well, you were very inspirational for me, in I didn't have to go through the hoops like you did. I have some history in the occult and things like that, so it's a little easier to spot. But your work and what you have done is, I feel like the fruit you're bearing is, I'm proof of that. I give you the credit for that. So unfortunately, you had to go through that, and I'm sorry, but it's paid off.
But you see now, it's a never-ending job.
Yes, absolutely.
Never-ending. So anyway, I guess let's wrap that up. I hope this was informative to whoever watches it. No doubt there will be some fallout from this, but that's, welcome to our world. But that's it. So I may resume regular videos in the coming, I don't know, I'm going to be busy for the next 6 weeks. We'll get there. Jason and I will hopefully we can get Michael on board, get some videos made to share some information with people. So keep checking back. Love you guys. God bless you all. Happy New Year. Remember, sign up for the course. Our course starts Monday. You have until tomorrow night. Well, New Year's Eve. You have until New Year's Eve to sign up. Visit Jason at thepowwowdoctor.com. He's very
powwowdoctor.com, not the Power Doctor.
Oh, sorry. powwowdoctor.com.
Yep.
Yeah, his website's very nice. It's much nicer than mine, and he's way more academic and better writer than me. So his stuff's really good. I recommend it. Powwowdoctor.com. Don't put the. That's a mistake I made in your email, I believe. So anyway.
Well, no, the email address is powwowdoctor@gmail.com. That's
so much to keep track of.
It is insanity.
Yeah. All right, this is great. Jason, we'll talk again, and everybody, thank you for watching. Love you. God bless you. Happy New Year, and we'll talk soon.
Cool. God bless.
All right.